I wanted to help people to heal in life. I really felt that in some way I was going to help people heal. And I didn't know what that was going to look like, but maybe I was going through this so that I could help other people going through the same thing. So I think that was kind of my mindset. And I was analyzed by all the doctors because they couldn't figure it out. So they sent me through all kinds of psychological testing to figure out why I healed, because they thought it was my mindset as well.
This is the Home of Healthspan podcast, where we profile health and wellness role models, sharing their stories and the tools, practices, and routines they use to live a lively life. Aimee Montgomery, it is so wonderful to be with you again. I think we may touch on it later, but this is our second time doing this, as the first time was during a hurricane, and apparently the backups did not work. So I appreciate any time I get with you. And so thank you for coming back.
Yeah, definitely.
Before we jump in, since this is our listeners' first time hearing from you, could you tell us how you would define yourself?
So I would define myself as a problem solver. That is something that I think it drives everything that I do, and someone that loves growth. So if there's an opportunity for growth, I'm all in, right?
Yeah, and that is certainly that growth focus, that growth love, that growth passion is something that I think really comes across in speaking with you, but also in understanding your journey. Because I think there are a lot of people that can look at you now, entrepreneur, like what you've won in what you've done physically, and think, oh, well, easy enough for her. But it wasn't, right? Like there was quite the journey to get to where you are. So maybe if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah. And specifically around health, I think I mentioned to you, both my parents were very into weightlifting and, bodybuilding. My dad had me in the gym with Mr. America at age 13. I'd be crying. When can I go home? Making fun of Mr. America. I had no fear as a child. And both marathon runners. So I grew up in that, but I rebelled against it for most of my life. And it wasn't until I needed it, right? And so I was in a car accident in 2000, and my head hit the windshield. I had brain damage, TBI, which only 1% of the population recovers from. I had it and that's usually within the 2 months. I had it for 3 months. And then that was a trip. And then my left arm was completely shattered. I had 2 plates, 15 pins and screws. My ulnar nerve, funny bone nerve, was cut in half. And 8 surgeons saw it in half. They don't know how it regenerated. They're like, we have no clue what happened. So my paperwork still says I'm disabled, even though I can use my arm perfectly fine. And during that time, though, I couldn't walk for 8 years. My spine was messed up. My hips were messed up. My ligaments were stretched. They didn't know how to fix it. So I would be stuck on the floor for like a week. I'd pass out from the pain, just be stuck there. And that was like 8 years. And I had a SI belt around my hips. And so I would go into the pool and lift weights because it could carry me. I was so determined, right? Yeah. And I would do absolutely anything that I could. If I could find a way, I would do it, right? And then I found a fitness contest, and I decided to actually, it was during one of the surgeries. They said I needed knee surgery. And I said, look, if I get buff, do I have to have more surgery? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, I said, if I turn myself into a bodybuilder, do I have to have more surgery? And they said, no. If you get buff, no more surgery. I'm like, okay.
So, you just need the right motivation.
Right. So I joined a fitness challenge, and I feel the metal moving in my arm, and I'm not supposed to be able to, because they moved my nerves and stuff too. So it was a little bit wonky. Even this day, I still have to do some things differently than other people, but I went from a size 12 to 4 in 2 months and gained 10 pounds of muscle, and completely transformed myself, and then did all the professional photos and all that kind of stuff. I beat 54 million people in the contest. And so that was the beginning of me. And I think a lot of it was just, I was fueled by just overcoming. And anytime someone tells me I can't do something, I'm like, oh, watch. Right?
Yeah. And that brings up two different things I'd love to dig on. I mean, one is people hear this and it sounds very much like a fitness journey, and it's about fitness. But what I heard was, hey, on my paperwork, I'm still labeled as disabled.
Yeah.
But that's not how I see myself, right? Like
Yeah.
I didn't see myself even when I was lying on the floors. That's who I am. And so I think this mindset of separating out labels from certain things we may be feeling or doing at a point in time versus how we're going to label ourselves. And so when you were in that position, what was it mindset wise that you were able to tap into to not fall into what is all too easy if the doctors are saying one thing and the paperwork saying one thing?
Yeah.
How did you overcome that?
I mean, there were times where I was really depressed. Like if I would have been made whole, I would have gotten millions of dollars because it wasn't my fault. So I remember being in my attorney's office and they're like, we don't know what you're going to get. And I needed money and I was so depressed. And they said to me, other people have been brain dead and they don't get they get $0. So whatever you get, just be grateful. I remember just being so depressed. I mean, and all my friends, every one of them said, you're not going to get better. You're not going to overcome. And I don't know, maybe I'm a little delusional. I just believed. And I think that has kind of been a common denominator throughout my life that, yeah, things happen, life happens, but, I think that you are more in control if you take responsibility. And I kind of just had it in my heart that I wanted to help people to heal in life. I really felt that was like in some way I was going to help people heal. And I didn't know what that was going to look like, but maybe I was going through this so that I could help other people going through the same thing. So I think that was kind of my mindset, right? And I was analyzed by all the doctors because they couldn't figure it out. So they sent me through all kinds of psychological testing to figure out why I healed because they thought it was my mindset as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's so resonant because when we think about health, we typically think about 4 pillars mostly that are very self-referential. So fitness, how I move my body, my nutrition, what I consume, my sleep, my recovery, my mindset, what I put into my mind. But what you're saying is what drove you through, because like I've been depressed. And when you're depressed, even if you intellectually know there's another side, it's very hard to feel it and get to the other side.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing from you is it was this 5th pillar. It was not all the stuff inside. It was having this broader purpose for people outside myself. Yeah. It was the social connection, the purpose of I'm going to use this to the benefit of others. This is a gift. I can't see it right now, but I'm going to turn it into a gift for this bigger thing outside of me. And I think that's what's missing so often. So that is amazing how you turn that around and where it's been able to take you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I've always had that kind of probably a little bit too much, of just always wanting to help people to the extreme. I've evened out a little bit more as I've gotten older. But yeah, I think that at the same time, it can drive you to extents that other things can't, because sometimes we'll do things because we're upset. We've gone through a hard thing and it's in some way, like I'm going to get back at, so-and-so or whatever it is. Like there's so many things that happen in our lives that we can funnel into health, into exercise and all these things. And yeah, I think that when you start to have a vision, like that I'm going to do something big because I'm going to help somebody.
So let's talk about that. Let's go through what that journey was. So, you're in a position where you're on the floor, you're in pain, you're told you can't do these things. You're told if you can go get buff, this is going to change the dynamic. What was that journey? How did you start? Like, what was day one? Because you hadn't been lifting. Like, you can't just show up and start deadlifting 300 pounds. You're going to have something. Like, what did that routine look like from week 1 to week 10 to week 40?
Yeah. So when I first started, I didn't have any program. I didn't have any structure or anything. So I was kind of on this search for something. And I think that this is kind of powerful because, I got to the point where I started watching all these bodybuilders, Bill Phillips, was one of my idols. And him and his brother, they did all of these videos to inspire people about fitness. And it was called Body of Work. And I was watching that and I started getting really inspired by him. So that helped from a mental perspective, and seeing all these other people transform their lives, starting with fitness. And his philosophy was, if you just do it, the emotions will come later. Right.
Yeah.
And so I had that, but I initially started out I had a pool, and I just started I'm like, I'm going to run in the pool. If I can't hold my body up, this is what I'm going to do. I was just determined. And then once I started and I did that for quite a while. And then once I started to figure out this whole fitness thing that I could follow, and, I didn't succeed at first. Like the first time I kind of tried to do everything, I was failing. My diet was a mess. Like I couldn't figure out, like, how do you lose weight? I had no clue.
Yeah.
My diet was just bread.
Yeah. I mean, they're two separate things.
Yeah.
So definitely want to dig in on the diet. But so on the fitness, so you start with loaded exercises in the pool because you need to have your body held up. But then over time, you're building the strength to be able to hold your body up.
Well, and here's the thing is I would get on the treadmill and I couldn't hold myself up. It was painful, and I would hold myself up with my hands. Okay. And I would just do what I could, and I'd do the pain.
Yeah.
And I had the sciatica thing, the whole, because my pelvis was shifted up, my right hip shifted up to the right. And my tailbone was twisted.
And so were there any specific exercises? Because, I mean, you're competing against millions of people in this, and you got like absolutely jacked. What were your go-to? Like how many days a week, for how long are you lifting to do this? And what kind of exercise?
Yeah, so I sort of follow this kind of, I can't remember what it's officially called, like a triangle type fitness, where I would, kind of do certain sets where I increase my weight, and then you start with a really high weight, then you go low, and then you increase it. And I would just do little sets, and I have it written out like it's a science. And then every day mark, what I'm lifting and all of that, and try to push it. And my mother's in my mind, oh, you're a wuss, put some more weight,
Were these all free weights, or were you doing machines?
Free weights.
Like what?
Yeah,
okay,
it's all free weights.
What specific exercises?
Yeah, and to this day, like I still have the free weights in my. I like got the ones that are just all in one.
Oh yeah. I mean that's the thing; they don't go bad.
Yeah,
right? Like they're not expiring inventory.
Yeah, and I have my own weight bench here. I also have a gym where I live, but I just like that I can walk 5 feet and lift weights,
Yeah.
And calf raises on stairs outside, that sort of thing. So yeah, I started just doing the free weights, and it's just that consistency. It's just every day doing it. And I've never had a hard time with, creating a schedule that I can stick to. If there's anything that, I need to work on, it's variety. But yeah, so I would just do every day. I do upper one day, lower the next day, cardio, 20, 30 minute cardio. Nothing, massive, and then back again.
So for accessibility, I mean, what I'm hearing is at a high level, at a home with a bench and one of those all-in-one weight sets, right? Like that's your go-to, and you can get a bunch in with just those. You're saying?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. And you just have to know how to use them. And I think that now I have some kettlebells. I love kettlebells because I feel like they're even better than free weights in a lot of ways. They give you a lot more range. And yeah, no doubt, like machines are great. They're safe. If you don't really know how to balance or whatever, they're great. There are definite machines that I love to this day that are still, I feel like, are even better than free weights. But I absolutely just did everything with free weights. I think it's because it was easy. Like I didn't have to drive anywhere to go do it. It wasn't like this huge thing that I got to go do, right?
That's the thing. I talk about fitness all the time of, hey, is 10 minutes as good as 90 minutes? Maybe not, but it's infinitely better than zero. And so finding, hey, is just having this set of equipment as good as having the full setup at the gym? Maybe not, But if it means you're going to actually do it, it's infinitely better. Like it doesn't matter. You have a theoretical gym 20 minutes away if you never visit it.
Yeah. And then you get the routine down and it's not as bad. And then you get to, you're studying Arnold Schwarzenegger. I remember the first time my knees got buff and I was like, I thought there was something medically wrong. Open up. I got to go look at Arnold. Look at his feet. I'm like, oh, it's muscle.
Yeah.
But I feel like when someone's just brand new to it, you kind of have to just go through that journey, and we make it too hard for ourselves sometimes, like, oh, I've got to just go big, or, I got to go to a triathlon, when in reality, gosh, if you could just show up every day for 5 minutes, you're good.
Really? I mean, literally, what's it, 4.5 minutes of vigorous activity a day leads to something like 25 to 30% lower all-cause mortality.
Yeah.
Right? Just 4.5 minutes. You tell me you don't have time. 4.5 minutes, you really don't have 4.5 minutes in your day to pop out some air squats, some jumping jacks, something, get some vigorous movement in. Yeah. So that's amazing. And it's incredible what consistency is able to accomplish with simplicity. You did bring up a point on, look, you put on 10 pounds of muscle, right? Here's all this work that goes into that. Putting on muscle is hard. Right? I think especially women, they're worried, oh, I don't want to lift. I don't want to get bulky. Do you know how hard it is to build muscle? It takes a lot of effort. People spend their full lives trying to put on this muscle. I don't think you have to worry about that. But there's a separate piece. You said you went from a size, I think it was a 14 to a 4.
It was like 12, 13 to a 4.
Yeah, to 12 to a 4. And so there's a weight loss side. And to your point, you can lose ounces in the gym, but you lose pounds in the kitchen. So what was it that you learned about nutrition, and how did that change how you fueled your body as you were going forward?
Yeah, and it's changed over time, but I've definitely learned the importance of protein for sure, and having balanced meals. I learned a lot of just trying to eat fresh and realistic too. I had this amazing cookbook called Eating for Life that I used to eat from all the time, and it was it was just real simple bodybuilder type, here's this type of salad and here's this type of, and I still create recipes from it. But really what I found the most beneficial is the fresher that I ate and removing the bread, the healthier I am. And I don't have to, I don't even know how much I weigh right now. I stopped weighing myself a few years ago because it's not an issue.
Right.
Right. And I mean, if I want to know how much weight, how much muscle I've gained, but that's fine. But I now know if I stop eating bread, then I don't gain fat.
I mean, that's the thing that people can kind of overcomplicate it, and weighing and tracking calories, all this. But if all you ate were plants and animals, not plant-based or animal-based, but just plants and animals, your body's going to fill up. Like you're not going to put on weight because it's going to know, because it's getting the right signals. It's when you start doing the breads or the pastas or the processed anything, even if it's quote plant-based, that your brain's confused and you overeat, and that's where problems occur. So that for you, it was mostly just about pulling out a single ingredient. Bread was like the real culprit there.
Yeah. And I stopped eating sugar in 2015. A lot of people were like, oh, how'd you do that? But I needed to do it for my gut health. And,
did you have a candida overgrowth?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of it had to do with my cortisol levels. And, I've since found from hitting my head, it messed up my whole system. And
did you take any probiotics? Did you have to repopulate after that?
Yeah. So I've been on a huge journey with it. I still continue. I still deal with some of it. Like I'll never go back to eating sugar, I don't think, because I still on the regular have to deal with cortisol. I did realize that because my cortisol levels are messed up, I don't feel, I don't have tons of energy in the morning. And then it drops about 3:00, and then evening I get this huge win.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
I started to work on that and switch it around.
Yeah, you need to invert that, right? You want the spike in the morning getting you up and going.
Yeah, so I have to do all these things in the morning. And so I'm getting up early now, organically 6 a.m. with no alarm. And I just hop in the cold shower and, make sure that I go for a walk in the morning. All these things that'll naturally produce the cortisol and kind of even that stuff out. But all of that to say is that, I dealt with the candida stuff, and a lot of it is like, you have to find your underlying issues, and for everyone it's different. And for me, like I had a lot of vitamin deficiencies, and I had a lot of cortisol stuff, and just, a perfect storm. And so unraveling that and quitting sugar was the best thing I ever did. And I'm never going back. There's just I have no desire.
There's not a big benefit, right? Like you see the downside and you're not seeing the upside. So why would you do it?
Yeah. It doesn't even taste good to me anymore. I will take, I'll use monk fruit if I'm really dying for something.
So besides the monk fruit, I mean, you talked about vitamin deficiency, some issues on the hormonal side with the cortisol, and maybe prebiotic, probiotic with the gut health. Did you have a set that you took of, hey, I needed my omega-3s and I needed my vitamin D? Like what was it outside of just the food that you did or do to supplement?
Yeah. So I take, for my adrenal fatigue, I take adaptogens in the morning that are very specific to increase cortisol, adaptogens like ashwagandha at night, and like, just all kinds of supplements that are going to help me relax. And then I do the vitamin D, B12, liquid B12, methylated, and iodine, and K2. And B12 and K2, I think for women especially, like you can go years and years and years and it not be detected that you have a deficiency. And so I do both of those. And then realize I was gluten intolerant. And that can last in your body for 6 months or more if you just have one bite. So, and that causes inflammation. And then if you've got inflammation, then your body can't heal. Yeah. So, it's just a perfect storm. And then I don't have stomach acid. So I take apple cider vinegar. And eventually my stomach acid will likely heal itself. But, okay. It's good for you anyway. So, but yeah, and then the probiotics, but you don't want to take too many at first because that'll cause inflammation if you've got lots of issues. But but it's been a process, and then like detoxing on the regular, making sure your liver is doing well and cleansed as well. And
how do you do that? So when you talk about detoxing, okay,
yeah, not fun. Yeah. But they definitely work. Yeah, it's amazing how if you're doing a detox, how much energy you get. The doctor that has me do it, he's seen people completely change their lives. Especially if they've drank a lot. But and you just get so much more energy from it. So, and I had also the benefits of it. I had a gallstone that it just flushed out of my system.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So, sometimes some of those things are great.
You talked about the importance of protein in your diet and really learning that and getting off the bread and getting enough protein on the plate. Do you get all your protein from your meals, or do you supplement at all for that?
I do supplement. I drink collagen.
Okay.
And that's been my go-to because I lost just a ton of muscle because I went all vegetarian without really, just because I was trying to eat better for my gut. And then I was just like, I'm not, they said eat fish. And I was like, just being finicky, eat fish and turkey. I'm like, that doesn't sound very exciting. I'll just eat the vegetables. And then lo and behold, where'd my muscle go? So, so then I started to add more stuff back and just make sure that I cycle through my diet and it's nice and balanced and I'm not like eating the same exact things every single day. But yeah, the collagen is great. It's also great for your gut.
Yeah. Gut. I mean, and nails and hair, that's something you take every morning with your coffee, or how do you take the collagen?
I drink it because I try to drink a ton of water every day. So I just mix it in with my water and I can't tell the difference. It doesn't,
How about hydration? I mean, do you do electrolytes? You mentioned you add iodine as a supplement. Do you do anything to up your electrolyte take?
I haven't, aside from Himalayan salt, that sort of thing. But yeah, it might be something that I'll think about.
Yeah. And then you talked about because of your cortisol cycle, it was kind of thrown off, which certainly is going to impact and play into your ability for sleep and for recovery. So you talked about some things at night, ashwagandha. Do you do magnesium, melatonin? Or do you have like a nighttime routine to try to take it down from the day?
Yeah.
So that, yeah.
And it's been tough, to be honest, because, I like to scroll on TikTok. But I do have to like turn off all the devices and not do that and instead do some yoga and start to do things that are going to help start to relax me, meditation, read, get away from all the artificial lights. I started to use a magnesium cream, like lotion. Actually, a company gave me one to ask me to promote it. And I tried it and I was like, oh, I'm going to buy this from now on. I mean, it really helps. And it's better than like even, I'll take Epsom salt bath and it's way better than that. So, yeah, it's been phenomenal. But yeah, so you kind of have to do all these sort of artificial things in a way initially to start to kind of shift how your system is and make sure that you are, regulated and all that. But it's surprising that it doesn't take much because I started to use, take my score, HRT score, to see when my cortisol levels were high. And it took me a little while to figure out what things I was supposed to look at it in the device. But once I figured that out, it was really amazing that just doing little simple things really does, just taking a cold shower. Sometimes I'll just put my face in ice water. That works too. If you don't want to do the full on cold shower, which a lot of people don't like, but just dunk your face in ice water works just as well. But just doing those little things really, really starts to shift your energy.
And just to be clear, the cold shower or ice water you do in the morning, right?
In the morning,
to spike to wake up.
Yeah.
And then so that nighttime routine, you named a few different things, meditation or yoga. I mean, is it based on what you feel for that day, or do you have a consistent like, hey, I was just with Brian Johnson, right, this past weekend, and he has a very clear routine. At this time, everything turns off, and here's what I do, and here's what I do, and here's what I do. Are you that consistent and regimented, or you say, hey, here's kind of my toolkit, and depending what I'm so scheduled that a serial killer could easily get at me, right?
You ever hear that phrase? Where you just do the exact same thing. And if anything, I have to break myself out of that, especially with eating, because I'd eat the same thing every day if I could, right? I'm a creature of habit. So once I know that something that works, I'll do hot baths too, because that's supposed to be really good, or hot sauna if I have access to that. So the hot is at night, cold is in the morning. Because, it's easy to throw supplements at things, but there's so many things that we can do externally and breathing, a lot of breathing exercises, mindfulness exercises. And the mindfulness really helped shrink my amygdala. They said that would happen. Like your amygdala, if you're reactive, it tends to swell, and the meditation shrinks it. And I did half hour every single day. I found myself completely not reacting to things anymore.
How long did that take? So you started
to see results a week. And I quite literally just found a 30-minute mindfulness, type of YouTube video. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to try it. And I'm just going to do it for 30 minutes a day. And yeah, all of a sudden I found myself just not reacting to things as much and not getting upset. And I think that's really important too, when you're an entrepreneur, because everything can set you off, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're throwing triggers constantly, right? And so people ask and say, hey, you don't stop the biology. That's going to happen. That's happening around you. But it sounds like, I mean, you're just a quick learner. What you can get better at is noticing sooner.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what's happening. Here's how I'm reacting. Do I want to react that way? Probably not.
Yeah. And like I'll get triggered.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will talk about being triggered and what that does to you. And it's so bizarre because all of a sudden you'll get triggered by something bizarre. I mean, it could be a cat walking down the street. It doesn't have to be anything big, right? Somehow it triggers you to something in your childhood, usually, and you will all of a sudden turn into a child psychologically because you're flashing back to that childhood thing. And it's a trip when you start to realize it and you're like, okay, what am I flashing back to? And once you can figure that out, I'll go on to I think I mentioned this before, I'll go on to YouTube, Tony Robbins NLP PTSD video. It's a little instruction video, and just walk myself through whatever that is so that I process it and it doesn't happen again. That's a nice way just to release, get rid of it. So, because if you're flashing back, that means you didn't process it and it's stuck, right? But yeah, so every once in a while, I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I acting like a child? And then it's like, oh, I had flashback. What am I flashback to? So yeah, and it's figuring out that you're doing that, and you're going into survival mode for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly aware, right? Because so many people are on autopilot and they're executing those scripts for years, if not decades. And was this kind of a byproduct or out of the accident that you got better at noticing this? Like, what was your journey to be able to notice those triggers?
Well, all of this, I mean, this may be a sensitive topic for some people, but I have parents that, let's just say they're not very emotional, right? So I didn't get a lot of emotional nurturing growing up. I think a lot of people can identify with that. And so I grew up, had no confidence, didn't know who I was, didn't develop myself as an adult, couldn't self-regulate emotions, didn't know you're supposed to process your emotions. I mean, the guy was a hot mess. And I was really an adult child walking around until I was about 48 years old. And I got this aha moment. Oh, this is what the family problem is, And I went through a recovery program from a lady by the name of Dr. Carol McBride. She's got a book called Will I Ever Be Good Enough? And she's a 99% recovery rate. So I went through her program. It was tough. It was a tough program from a healing perspective. Most people don't go through it because they don't like to go through healing. It's painful
because it's not comfortable, right?
Yeah,
no. You have to work through the discomfort.
Yeah, and I had to address my own toxic, tendencies, because I'm very much of an empath. I love people, but a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'm an empath. I can do no wrong." Guess what? That's kind of toxic. Don't be an overgiver. Like, stop it. Have boundaries, right? And it took me to have self-respect before I could actually stand up, because I don't like confrontation, right? I'll avoid it with the plague. So I've had to convince myself to be confrontational. And it's funny because one of my former coworkers, she's like, "You've got brass balls," she says to me one day. She goes, "You weren't like this when we worked together at the law." I said, "No, I've completely changed myself." So it's been a journey, and a part of that journey, back to your initial question, was I read this book called Who Dies? And it helped me to start to learn to process emotions, learn to be aware, learn to look at life as a circle versus a line, a timeline. You're growing versus, start to end. And expanding. And I just started to see life different. I started to see everything different. And, I was for a long time strong Christian. I still consider myself a Christian, but I'm very, very open-minded, and started to look at everybody and everything. And going on this like full-on path that everyone just thought that I had dropped off the side, the planet. Like, what? She's not one of us anymore. And I completely changed everything. And, but it was so freeing to be able to expand my mind, expand who I was, figure out who I am, and really become an adult. And so that I went through that last 6 years, and it was a lot. It's been a lot of work. I think that my last thing, I still have trust issues. I have to learn to trust people and not project my non-trust. And that's really a choice. It's taking responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about the Tony Robbins video. You'll go back to when you have something specific, the NLP program, I think you mentioned. But back to, you have this consistent routine where you would eat the same food, and you have the same night routine, and you take the same things. Do you have, and maybe it is the yoga or it is the meditation, journaling or anything that you consistently do, saying, hey, I know where my mindset got me at one point. I know where it's taking me now. And this is what I use as my kind of tune up daily or weekly or monthly.
Yeah. So the program that I had gone through with Dr. Karen McBride, it was it's kind of a set of things you go through. I continue to go through it every 6 months. I assess where I'm at psychologically, where I'm at in my growth. What do I really need to work on? What's my deal? So for a while I was like, oh, I don't feel safe. I was always, as an entrepreneur, always thinking I was going to be homeless. Just go right there. It just, to the worst extreme it could possibly be. I'm just thinking, oh my gosh. So just consistently feeling like I'm not safe. And so I actually went into ChatGPT and I was like, okay, be my psychologist, write me some exercises that I can do that's going to cause me to feel more safe. And so it would give me these journal entries and things I had to do every single day. And so I have a wow. Well, I burned most of them, but I had a journal for every single day of my life. So that's something I do often.
And why? So that's extraordinary. Yeah, every single day of your life, you journal. What is it that you see? This is the benefit. This is why I journal.
Interesting. It's funny because I was born dyslexic, and I think it turned me into a genius reader and writer. Well, and also like I'm addicted to books, but I think a lot of it was because I struggled. I saw my mother and my sister doing it, and they're cool to me. And so I think when I was 5, I started, and it was more like my gerbil this, my cat this type of a thing. And then
the gerbil journal. Yeah.
Talking about, little 5-year-old things. Right. And it's interesting because my journaling has shifted over the years, where it used to be just my day. Then it was, how I'm feeling. Now it's more like a check-in, okay, with myself, with different things. Because it's interesting because you can almost step outside of yourself and say, okay, I'm reacting because of this, this, and this is my default. And so I kind of like to step out of that and kind of analyze myself. And then, and if this might be too deep, but then analyze myself analyzing.
Ooh, okay.
And really try to step out and see, what else could this mean, right? And I had that situation the last couple of days. I was freaking out. I had this nightmare, and I just kept thinking something bad's going to happen because I had this nightmare. Because usually, like if I have a nightmare, my subconscious picks up on something, and something does happen. But then I was like, you know what? Like, it doesn't really matter. You're going to be fine. Right? So, whatever happens, right? You've always gotten through everything. You just got to believe.
I love that because maybe it's confirmation bias, but the people that catastrophize, whether it's an airplane or whatever it is, and say, okay, let's go through all your life until now. And every piece of evidence has shown that you've made it through. You got through it. And so, yes, these things could go wrong, but to have that self-confidence, all the evidence points to having the self-confidence. Like you've done it. You've got to here. You can work it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and a lot of times you need a full out miracle, but guess what? They always happen. Somehow you're just okay. And, I think too, like you kind of build up this resilience, especially if you bootstrap a business. And, there were times I lived below poverty level. I didn't care. And I remember I said this to somebody else this week where when I first started, I was so panicked because one day my bank account was negative 300 and I was talking to this other entrepreneur and he's like, mine's negative 2,000. What's your problem? I was like, oh, this is supposed to happen, right?
He's like, you're rich. You're only 300 in the hole.
And I think just changing your perspective on what you expect and just not letting, and he's like, yeah, like after a while, you just, the whole world could be on fire and you just are not affected because you get used to it after a while. And I thought, that is pretty powerful. So once I shifted and stopped caring as much, not that you don't work hard, not that you don't do everything, all the right things, not that you don't, keep pushing forward, but you're less affected by circumstances with your own expectations and just letting go. I think that helps too.
Yeah, I was having this conversation with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon about the process, not the results, right? So if you get so hung up on the results, the outcome, everything, that's not in your control, right? Like it's very sorry. You can't control that, but you can just keep going back to your process.
Yeah.
And you focus on that and you work on that, the results will take care of themselves one way or the other, but focus on what's in your control and you're going to be way less stressed and way more effective.
Yeah, definitely.
You mentioned connecting with another entrepreneur. So, entrepreneurship can be incredibly kind of lonely venture. And you talked about the gym, like you have the access to the gym, but you also 5 feet, 20 feet away have your own personal gym at home that you can just do the stuff. So with everything that you're working on and doing, how do you make space for that social connection? Realizing, when you were coming out of the depression and everything, what was pulling you out was that bigger purpose, that social purpose outside and beyond yourself. How are you able to do that today? Yeah,
it's so interesting because I'm such a hermit. I'm such an introvert by choice. And, I find that, for me to just go out to an event, if there's like a random, I'm not going. I'll go out and do a class. I'll go out and do something productive, but I'll go to a festival once in a while, but if it's a group of people, I'm like, nah, I'll pass. And so one thing that I did early on in my business was I started with my podcast, and I would interview a person every day. I did the first year. I did a podcast every single day, and because I didn't have any work to do. I didn't have anyone paying me at that time. I didn't know, I didn't have any proven processes back then. I didn't know, what people wanted, and I didn't charge enough. But I got a lot of clients from my podcast just because people were being, I think, supportive, to be honest. And I made a lot of friends, and so there's still people that are around me that maybe we never worked together, but we still send each other messages every single day. Like we're on LinkedIn and we're talking about the entrepreneurial journey. And I just had somebody, she's like, I'm $6,000 short every month. And I'm just like, we're going to do this, and we're always trying to come up with ideas and encourage each other. And I think it's helped my mental health a lot just to connect with other business owners that are, especially going through what I call the 5-year suck, which is the first 5 years of your business. And that's kept me sane. And then, and then I have on TikTok, now I have 107,000 people that follow me. And so I can easily just get on a live and start talking to people. So that helps. I do see that I do need to build out my personal life more and go out more and be more intentional. And it just depends on what I got going on. If I've, right now I'm scaling my business. So I'm taking on as many clients as I possibly can at the same time as trying to figure out when I'm going to hire somebody and have that job listing out. And for that, it's I work so much that it's I don't want to go anywhere, right? I just want to work. And that's not sustainable long term, right? I have to have so January is my cutoff. So January, there's a lot of bills will be paid off. I'll be in a better place financially, all that. So January will be my, my where I'll invest in that a little bit more. As you may know, I'm big on calendaring, right? Like the zero-based calendar approach and really structuring it. And a couple things on it of it's not a one and done exercise, right? You have these seasons of the year, seasons of life, where it's not about balance, it's about equilibrium. And what social should fit in with professional, with fitness, with sleep. And these are all dials you dial in, right, on the right level, depending on the season. So I think that consciousness of, hey, here's why I am through the end of the year.
And then here's where I need to be. And the balance needs to be over the course of a life, not necessarily just an individual day or individual week.
Yeah.
But also understanding that a life is just the sum of your days. So you can't just keep kicking the can. You do have to think, okay, no, these blocks of time, and I'm going to hold myself to account that I am going to overinvest in X for this time and then underinvest in X, but overinvest in Y for this other time.
Yeah. And having a plan to do that. And I think that it's, I finally got to a point in my business where I've got a couple of deals where I know I'm just going to get consistent revenue. And then also I paid off a lot of stuff. So that's, then I can live off of really nothing. I got rid of my car. I'm such a minimalist now. I'm like, I don't need a car. Why do I need a car?
I mean, it gives you a massive amount of freedom, right? Like people say, I can't do this because of X, right? I have this payment, I have that payment. And what you're really saying is I prioritize this thing, right? This material item that I need to pay for more than what I'm saying I care about. Yeah. And that may be true. If you say, yeah, actually, I do value the car more or my kid's private school more than this other thing, that can be a fine answer, but own it. The agency is yours. You decide. And you decided, no, I value my financial freedom more than having the car. So I'm going to get rid of that because that gives me more freedom and flexibility here.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't go anywhere. Like I order groceries unless I want to drive across town and do something. Like it's a luxury, really. I could get an Uber. I could rent a car, So I think that it's just for cheaper, because by the time you're paying for insurance and all this kind of stuff, and I don't know, I just kind of just felt like it's sometimes less is more, and you get, things are just less complicated. And it's not that I don't value things or I don't value any of that kind of stuff, but I think, especially with my business, I just got in my mind of like the vision I wanted to create for myself. And that was more important. And, just having your priorities straight, right?
Yeah. I mean, speaking of priorities, Aimee, this has been amazing. Like I always say, catching up with you, whether it's online, commenting on each other's stuff on social or in person via podcast, it's an absolute pleasure. You've lived such an inspiring life and led such an incredible journey. And I think there are a lot of people that can come in at this stage and see where you are and feel overwhelmed, right? Of, okay, all of this is all together, but it didn't start with that. And so for people who say, look, I know where I am, it's not where I want to be. I want to get started. I'm inspired. I want to go forward. What is the one thing you would suggest people start with?
There's really two philosophies that I absolutely agree with. Is one is your mind, the other is take massive action, right? Because your physiology really controls your emotions. So you can definitely just push yourself to go jump on a trampoline and change your body language, and you're going to change your mindset. But I always called it kind of brainwashing myself to do what I want to do. So one of the free things you can do, which changed my life, was going through Tony Robbins' Get the Edge, which is free on YouTube. He's got all of them free out there. People have just posted them. When I did that, it transformed my life. And I started actually getting a vision, and started just to believe that it was going to happen. I mean, even with having a large social media and having my own business every single day, I'm thankful that I have this. Even when I hated my job and I didn't have anyone follow me on social media, right? So you just have to have a vision and just believe it. And if you can do that and tell yourself and just be grateful for it as if it already exists, it'll happen.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. You are a true role model, overcoming everything you already have and building what you are building. And can't thank you enough for coming back for round 2, and can't wait to share this one with the audience at large. So thank you so much, Aimee.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Home of Healthspan podcast. And remember, you can always find the products, practices, and routines mentioned by today's guests, as well as many other Healthspan role models on alively.com. Enjoy a lively day.